conversation that rippled through the entire cabin. In the first class section, an elderly man with white hair, tall and sharply dressed in a black suit, was shouting angrily at a young man. "Hey, poor boy, this is my seat, get up." Passengers nearby flinched at the loud outburst. A flight attendant quickly rushed over, trying to de-escalate the situation. But the old man's voice only grew louder. That man was Richard Vanderbilt, heir to a wealthy and influential family, a global businessman, owner of luxury hotels and restaurants. But today, he confused his power and wealth with something else, human dignity. The young man sitting in front of him was Kamal, a student from Central Asia who had come to America in pursuit of education. Today was a milestone for him. He had, for the first time, bought a business class ticket with his own hard-earned money. He hadn't taken the seat by mistake. It was rightfully his. At first, Kamal sat quietly, listening to the shouting. But the insult to his dignity reached a level he could no longer tolerate. The flight attendant checked the seating chart on her tablet and spoke up. "Mr. Vanderbilt, I'm sorry, but this seat belongs to Mr. Kamal. Your assigned seat is 2A by the window." For a moment, the cabin fell silent. Vanderbilt stopped mid-yell and looked into the eyes of the so-called poor boy. What he saw wasn't fear, but dignity, patience, and strength. That gaze struck Richard in a way he wasn't expecting. The old man slowly lowered his head. "Forgive me, son," he said softly. Applause echoed through the cabin. Kamal said nothing. He simply nodded in acknowledgement. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about respect, equality, and human values. From that day forward, Richard Vanderbilt launched educational foundations across his businesses and began an initiative called Equality in the Sky. Kamal went on to complete his studies and became an international human rights lawyer, dedicating his life to defending the dignity of people around the world. Their story was no longer about a single seat. It became an unforgettable lesson for an entire society. Dignity at the airport, the true face. Richard Vanderbilt felt different this time. It wasn't a business trip. It was a personal journey, a tribute to his late wife. They had spent their honeymoon in Paris, and now, after her passing, he decided to return there. His heart was heavy with grief, and in that fragile moment, he lashed out at a young man in a harsh, angry tone. He lost control of his emotions. Kamal didn't raise his voice. He calmly showed his ticket and simply said, "Sir, this is my seat. I'm sure there's another suitable seat available for you. Please check." His voice was polite, yet firm. In that moment, it became clear that sometimes the strongest way to defend your dignity is to speak softly. When the flight attendant checked the manifest and confirmed Richard's mistake, something shifted in him. It wasn't like his old self, the powerful, dominant figure. It felt as if something inside him had quietly broken. He softly said, "I'm sorry, young man. I spoke out of turn," and then walked to C2A. As the plane flew over the Atlantic, the woman sitting next to Kamal leaned in, visibly annoyed. "The rich think they're gods. But you're smart, kid." You showed them their place with calm words. Kamal smiled gently and replied, "I used to wash dishes in New York cafes. People talked down to me sometimes, but I always held on to my ticket and stayed in my seat." As the plane approached Paris, a flight attendant came to Kamal and said, "Mr. Kamal, someone will be meeting you after the flight. Mr. Vanderbilt would like to see you and offer his apology in person." Kamal was surprised. After landing, he found Richard waiting for him at the airport. This time, he was dressed simply, his eyes sunken, his face revealing his true self. "I almost lost more than just a seat that day. I nearly lost my humanity. My wife passed away recently. My heart was in pain. But your patience opened my eyes," he said. Kamal paused and nodded. Life is hard on all of us, but who we are is defined by how we treat others. From that moment, an unexpected partnership was born. Richard invited Kamal to serve as an advisor to his education foundation, and together they created a new program called Skybridge Scholarship. Through this initiative, hundreds of young people gained access to global universities and were given the chance to unlock their full potential. And that single moment of humility aboard the plane became a lasting lesson for an entire generation. Dignity at the airport, a new chapter in Paris. Camel thought that nothing major would change after stepping off the plane. But life in Paris transformed him into a completely different person. After the airport incident, Vanderbilt invited Camel to serve as a consultant for the Skybridge Scholarship Foundation. Dignity at the airport, applied to study at the Sorbonne. His room was small, his income modest, but his ambitions were great. He studied during the day, learned French in the evenings, and sometimes worked as an Uber Eats delivery rider. But he never complained. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt sent him emails regularly, checking in and offering words of encouragement. A quiet friendship had begun to grow between them. One day, Richard wrote, "Camel, if you have time, I'd like you to attend a forum in Paris as a representative. The theme is entrepreneurship and equality. I believe your perspective would be incredibly valuable." Camel accepted the invitation. At the forum, he spoke about his days washing dishes in New York cafes, the incident on the plane, and most importantly, the value of preserving human dignity. Public impact. Camel's speech moved the audience to tears. The video of his talk quickly went viral on social media. He was invited for interviews by CNN, France 24, Al Jazeera, and other major outlets. But Camel wasn't seeking fame. He simply became a voice for those who are often unheard. One day, Richard Vanderbilt wrote him a letter. "I looked at you as an ordinary person and belittled you. But you made me human again. I no longer see you as an advisor. I see you as a teacher of life." Camel read the letter and recorded a message for his mother. "Mom, do you remember how you used to say, 'Be a good man, son. Wealth will come later. I'm still not rich, but I'm living with my dignity intact. Thank you for your wisdom.'" One photo, 1,000 stories. The photo from that flight circulated online under the title "The Fight for One Seat." But people eventually realized it wasn't just a seat. It became a symbol of equality, patience, and human dignity. Today, Camel is pursuing his master's in law at the Sorbonne. He is invited to global organizations and participates in international events. But most importantly, he has remained himself, calm, just, and a man who knows his place in the world. Dignity at the airport returned to America. The 2 years Camel spent in Paris were a time of great learning. But his heart remained in America. New York, that's where it all began. The doubts, the trials, and the victory. In early 2025, he returned to the U.S. On his first day back in New York, he stopped when he saw a group of young activists handing out flyers at a subway station corner. The flyers read "Migrant Rights." Camel joined the group and began offering his legal expertise to support their cause. Soon after, he founded his own nonprofit, the Equal Seat Project, aimed at fighting discrimination in public transportation, airlines, and service industries. First case, suing the airline. Reflecting on the incident he experienced on the flight in 2022, Camel began a deep investigation into the airline's internal policies. He uncovered a confidential clause allowing staff to remove passengers who could damage the brand image, favoring wealthier clients. Although unofficial, this clause had been practiced within internal policy. Camel compiled evidence and testimonies from others who had similar experiences. The media picked up the story. Soon, the U.S. Department of Transportation launched an investigation. At a public hearing, Camel said, "I was never fighting for a seat. I was fighting for human dignity. That seat represents the place every person deserves in a just society." Legal battle. Experienced civil rights attorneys joined Camel's side. Previously silent passengers, migrants, and underprivileged students added their voices. Camel turned the case into a national movement. 6 months later, the airline officially changed its policy, abolishing any internal rules that conflicted with the principle of equality. It marked the first time in U.S. history that a major airline altered its policy due to public pressure over discrimination. Meeting Vanderbilt again. By then, Richard Vanderbilt was hospitalized. Age and illness had taken their toll. He called for Camel. "You turn out to be a better man than I ever was," he said. "My wealth can't match the power of your voice. If there's one thing I can do with my legacy, it's to help you build a more just world. I want to honor you while I still can." Richard transferred 4% of his hotel chain shares to Camel's foundation. These funds were now being used to support young people and defend those unjustly targeted or silenced. Final scene, a new generation. Camel now volunteers twice a week at a legal aid clinic in Brooklyn. On the wall of his office hangs a large photograph, the moment on the plane. Beneath it reads, "This seat is yours. If you speak up, someone will listen." Around him are young volunteers, students of all backgrounds, teachers, and lawyers. This is no longer just about one seat. It's the voice of an entire new generation.